Hi, my name's Eli Schwartz from the Learning Science team here at Kaplan. Welcome to your gateway to understanding how we can apply the Kaplan way for instruction to worked examples. By the end of later trainings, our objective will be to enable you to apply worked examples in concrete instructional ways. First, though, you need the context and foundation of understanding worked example basics and how they implement proving learning science principles. Recall a time when you had to walk a student through a problem, and the lesson or content or practice simply didn't fully prepare them for the problem at hand. You had to walk them through it step by step, justifying each part of the solution mechanism. Maybe there were parts that the student was tripped up by, maybe you finally explained through them anyway. Did you try and explain to them what was going on in your mind so they could see the logic? What if the lesson had given them exactly that? Expert walkthrough in the first place? Great question. Here, in broad strokes, is what a worked example is. This definition, from the article Worked Example Effect in the Encyclopedia of the Sciences of Learning, may seem rather general. Let's look at a classic example from mathematics. Here's a true worked example in its purest form. Each step on the left is addressed by the expert on the right. In class, the student would be asked to discuss why the expert knows, for instance, to seek two values for x, or why he knows they're both negative, so on. And ideally, the student would get another example in the self-same form with some of the why statements removed, scaffolded, because the student no longer needs them, and immediately after, a problem to do on her own. Perhaps it would end up scaffolding down so that the student is really only using worked examples as a small supplement to already essentially knowing how to do the problem by that point. Think about the effect. We've taken the student through a step-by-step example of a problem, then she gets a chance to execute the same steps on another similar problem. Having become familiar with how an expert thinks, she can apply the exact same process herself. This prominent effect, when teaching with worked examples, has been demonstrated in extensive research. It doesn't just work for math, though. Let's consider that for many students, reading a paragraph or passage is inherently a problem of recognizing and understanding connections that an expert reader takes for granted. Let's see how this could work. The worked example doesn't have to be entirely on screen or on paper as the problem or passage is presented. It can be worked through with the instructor there to mediate and facilitate understanding as the expert. The goal, after all, is that the student clearly receive each detailed step that the expert would think, so they can internalize and mimic that on their own. The student has now been taken through the step-by-step reading of a paragraph. Then she gets more expert thoughts and a chance to execute the same reading analysis on another similar paragraph. Having become familiar with the expert thinking, she can apply the exact same process herself on an entire passage. That's effective learning. That clearly beats having the student just keep practicing until they figure it out themselves. Intuitively, I hope, this makes sense to us as teachers. But unfortunately, many instructors skip over worked examples in lessons, assuming they're too easy or frivolous, since the student will have an exactly similar problem to do in the homework set anyway. In point of fact, it is exactly that correlation that creates the most effective instruction overall. We've kept this session short and sweet. We hope that you've learned the main objectives, and if necessary, you can come back through and watch the session again. Let's recap. At this point, you should understand the classic definition of what a worked example is, and be able to say exactly what benefit a worked example has when implemented correctly. Congratulations on finishing this session. For more on the definition and content used herein, please explore our works cited.